Well, over the past weeks, we've gone down many roads, and this week is going to be no exception. We're going to go down another road, but before that, I have something to share. Before that, Barry, good morning. Are you staying warm up there?
It's on the chilly side. We're not supposed to get out of the 30s until Sunday, so we got
Oh,
several days here of bundle up style weather.
this has gone all around us. It was right on the Tennessee border. Of course, there's folks in Texas, Oklahoma, all through the Midwest that are getting hammered. Tornado over on the East Coast. For those that ask about us, we're fine. And I mean, we're right in the middle of everything was going around us. Just talk with Hanok. They're getting snow in Jerusalem. There's snow up on the Golan Heights. Modi'in is they're just getting rain there. But Hanok looked like a little blue snowman this morning, all bundled up in his apartment there in Modi'in.
With snow on Hermon, that's good news. That's water to run off into the Kinneret.
Yeah, well, the Kinneret, the Galilee, is almost at its highest level. So, I mean, but this is what it's going to allow with snow up on the Golan Heights and Mount Hermon will allow the Kinneret to actually, that's that feed coming in there. For anyone that does not know the topography, Mount Hermon is basically was volcanic. So the whole Golan Heights is volcanic, and it just soaks up water. And then that comes out at Banyas, or what the scripture calls the Caesarea Philippi, otherwise nicknamed the gates of hell. And this was the place, the spring there at Banyas, which feeds into the Yarden River. So that's a little bit of the topography there.
Yeah, was it the Rehoboth Springs? There, it's a state park, and I mean it's just rushing volumes of water.
Oh yeah,
it's gorgeous, but I mean, I had no idea what mountain runoff would look like to a narrow chasm like that. It's just amazing.
It's really something. I've been up there when it was flooding, and you talk about a lot of water. It is amazing.
If you've never been to Israel,
yeah,
please. I know travel restrictions are current, and you may think, well, we'll never be able to go. While you can't go, save for when you can go. And when you do go, you want Mike and Hanok to be your tour leader and guide. That's the way to do it. And that is the trip to take. I've been on it. I've been to Israel other times. That's the trip to take. You don't want your traditional trip. You want their trip.
Thank you. That's a great piece of wisdom this morning, Barry. That while you can't go, save for when you can go. Yeah, that's I would not agree with that statement any more. Barry woke up this morning to a post from a friend of mine old acquaintance of mine in California, Kip Himes, and Kip has been a sound engineer through the years. I've worked with him on numerous occasions with anything from MIA to other conferences that we've done. And he posted that someone that he knew, he traveled with and worked engineering for them, Carmen, died yesterday of, I think it was, what was it, a complication, or I didn't get that on there. What?
Hiatal hernia surgery, and then he had complications afterwards, which oftentimes, I don't know for sure, but oftentimes that means a staph infection or something that got into his bloodstream and couldn't be rectified.
65 years old.
Wait,
we have a generation today that doesn't know Carmen, knew nothing about Carmen. But this is a man who affected many, many people. I remember when he came out with the tour, the Addicted to Jesus, A to J tour. And it really rocked a lot of people. It was an amazing thing. In fact, I got a little story to tell you. I was pastoring down in Spring Creek, Florida, in Wakulla County, and of course, we were all doing the A to J thing. And Carmen was coming to Tallahassee, Florida, of all places. He was going to be at the Tallahassee Coliseum. So we put together a number of people that were, to go there from our congregation. And I think there was like 20,000 people. I can't remember exactly. It couldn't have been that. Tallahassee doesn't hold that many, but it was a pile of folks. Okay. And we walked in and everybody was going, it's just open doors. We're running all over the place. And I think it was my wife, Kathy, said, look right there. Nobody's going down to that little area. And it's right there at the stage. So we all ran down there and got our seats, and we've got, 20, 30 people there in the area. And Carmen comes out and does this thing. He's right there in front of us. And so at the end, he had this thing called, I think it was Captain Bible. And it was, it was a thing that he was doing at that time. And it was this little costume, character type thing. Well, they picked one person from this, thousands of people that are there. They picked this one person. I can't remember how they were picking, whether it was out of a hat or something. I don't know. And it ended up being someone from our church, one of the kids. And it was like, we were like the smallest. And Spring Creek is what they would say is, can anything good come out of Spring Creek? Okay? So it was Glenda's son. I can't remember his name, Philip. And so Philip was so shy that he wouldn't go up there. So they picked someone else. And guess what? It ended up being someone else from our church. Renee and Beebe.
Oh, yeah.
It was Renee's youngest daughter, Megan. I'm giving out a lot of names here. But Megan was, she was a little tiny thing in that day. She was not more than, 4 years old or something. Renee will correct me with all these things. But she got to go up. Renee had to go up there with her. She went up there and they dressed her with a little Captain Bible thing, and she was like the Captain Bible. So the prize of all that is you got to go backstage and meet Carmen. Well, here's Renee. And so she, they said, okay, after everything, Carmen's going to go back and get a shower, clean up a little bit. And so you need to show up here, and they're going to take you back and you get to meet Carmen. Well, I looked, being the shy person I am, I said, well, can her pastor go with her? She needs an escort. And the guy looked at me and goes, yeah, come on, go ahead. So we actually got to go back and meet Carmen. I have that picture of Megan up on the stage. I have it in one of my scrapbooks somewhere around here. So that's my story of Carmen. And I'm sure that Renee is going to probably
give you a call and straight you out.
Some email about that I shouldn't share that. But remember, Renee, there's parts of that story that I didn't share. Okay, but I could have. All right.
I remember the days when he started out as basically a Christian comedian, and one of the recordings we bought early on, he used a line in the story about Noah. He said Noah was sitting on his front porch eating lasagna he cooked with a torch. And then after that, the audience is laughing. And he said, I just write it down the way he gives it to me, folks.
I never knew that of Carmen.
Oh, yeah. That's what he started out with. He's more and a very heavy New York accent.
Okay.
Noah sitting on the porch eating lasagna. He cooked with the torch.
Find something here, but...
Of course, that's about all I remember of those days. But anyway, he had an awesome influence on my kids.
Wow. I'll tell you the one that had the influence. I didn't know he was a comedian. I just knew him as a singer. But I'll give you a little walk down memory road here. How about that one? You remember that?
Let me see. Yes.
Mike Warnke.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the one that I kind of grew up with. Is Mike Warnke. He was interesting man. Yeah,
he didn't push any boundaries, did he?
He pushed a lot of things in that day. Maybe a little bit too far, but that's another subject.
Okay, we need to reel this in and get the boat start rolling just a little bit here.
All right, we want to go ahead.
Matthew 7. We've talked about the Roman road. We've talked about the Damascus road. We've talked about the road to Emmaus. Yeshua talked about a road. And in Matthew 7, he says in verse 13 and following, enter in through the narrow gate, because the gate is wide and the way is broad that leads to destruction. And there are many who enter in through it, because the gate is narrow and the way is hard pressed, which leads to life, and there are few who find it. So he's talking about two different roads, paths, or streets. And one's narrow, leads to, or it's a straight path, leads to a narrow gate. The other one is broad and has a broad entrance. One leads to life, one leads to destruction. My question to start you off, Mike, is how do we know which one we're walking on? Can we think we're on one and actually be on the other?
Yeah, which I guess to begin that, we would have to think about it like this, that, we were talking before we got on the show, is these, what is the roads? Are they opposite, going in two different directions? Are they like, is it one road that parallels or something like this? And as you're reading it, what I got in the picture in my mind is that these are parallel roads. And if you ask a person that's on the narrow road or a person that's on the broad road, they would both tell you they're going to the same place. But the destination at the end, one destination is a reality. The other one is a counterfeit or a pseudo destination. So it is a destination that looks real, but in the end, it's kind of like pulling the curtain back. And you thought you were going to a place, but it's like there was, how in old movies, you can see it now. I mean, in that day, we thought it was so amazing, but you see it now that behind the characters, there's, this scene from the Old West scene or something like that. But as you look at it now in HD, on a larger screen, it was just a painting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that if well, I won't bring up that movie, but where Western movie where they bust through the stage and there's the reality behind it. For one group, they're going towards something that is real because they're following something that's real. They're markers. The markers along the way are lining up with the reality of the destination. But for the other road, the markers are a counterfeit because it's leading to a counterfeit. Does that make any sense? Or should we start the program over?
Well, no. I think for the most part, we walk the path that is immediately preferable to us.
Okay.
We can only see ahead so far. We can estimate within, I have an appointment next week and have some opportunity to come down your way.
Mm-hmm.
And in my mind, I've already envisioned certain events or certain things that may or may not take place and how, it's going to be when I get to a certain destination and so forth. And in my mind, I'm thinking I need to have this with me and don't forget about that and be prepared for such and such. So in our mind, we're looking ahead. And in this case, it's a week and a half out. Now, the way that things have gone over the last year or so,
Yeah.
who knows what restrictions or lifting of restrictions may take place? Who knows, 2 months ahead? We can't look that far and with any certainty begin to estimate how it's going to be. A week out, I've got a good guess, unless something dramatic takes place, unforeseen. That being said, Mike, what we typically do is choose the path of least resistance. I'm going to be taking a road trip, and I have a choice. I can choose the most direct route that will save me the most time, or I can leave a day or earlier or so and do a detour and involve some other things in the process. Which way am I going to do this? Well, which one is the easiest?
Mm-hmm.
If you follow the easy path, chances are you're going to choose the one with the most width of opportunity and accompaniment of folks around you. It's very, very unlikely that we would choose a path where we're lonely, confined, or restricted. My scriptures translation here says, pertaining to the idea of verse 14, the way is hard pressed. The little footnote here says the way is afflicted. So what I intentionally choose a path that I know is going to have trials and calls for endurance, perseverance, those things. If Israel had known what laid in store for them in the wilderness setting, would they have refused to cross the Red Sea? Now, did Yah allow Pharaoh to show up when he did so that they wouldn't even think about it? They would scurry across the path on dry ground and get to the other side out of flight or fight mindset, wiped out Pharaoh's army and with the waves. But what it also did is it covered up the path to return. There was no way back across. Later on, when they're saying, let's elect a leader to take us back to Mitzrayim, well, how were they going to get across the sea? Did they actually think that Yah would open up the waters and let them go across again on the same land bridge? Did they not understand we're going to have to go through the path of the Philistines to get home? How are we going to do that? They weren't thinking that far ahead. Yah put them in a place where they had but one thing to do and keep marching straight ahead. But that also meant you're going to have trials of food, trials of water, trials of leadership, the loss of a generation, the formation of a nation. You're going to have to go through all these processes. That, I think, is what Yeshua is saying here. You have to choose the path that forces you to walk straightly, uprightly, righteously, and with maturity. Otherwise, if you're just meandering around and enjoying the trip, you're never going to get to your destination.
Yeah. So are the events of the world what we've gone through in the last just over a year now? I hear people praying against it, which, you've heard me say that the average Christian, Messianic, Hebrews, whatever you want, whoever, most people would have died in the flood because they would have, instead of building an ark, they would have prayed against the rain. There continues to be people who pray against things that may be the Pharaoh pushing them over the sea. And then it brings me to something else. I taught this coming out in my weekly video. We hear these people say that, well, we need to build a bridge back to the people that the system we came out of. We need to build a bridge back. It wasn't a bridge that brought us where we are.
Explain that one.
Okay. He didn't bring us where we are via a bridge. He brought us to where we are with the parting of a sea. And so, is it that we shouldn't be trying to build a bridge back, but praying that others would have a desire to or be pushed to that edge of their own, their side of the sea, and praying that the same one who opened it for us would open it for them.
Okay. I don't know if I'm going to muddy the analogy or not.
Threw a wrench at you there.
I see what you're saying, and I don't disagree with the analogy here. I guess my question is, and it may not fit the analogy at all here, but I had someone to influence me, to give me a call and an awareness of a different perspective and a different walk that I didn't know existed. I had a yearning for and just couldn't figure out what the yearning was for.
Okay.
There was a seed already in there of the seed was, I want to be well pleasing to the Father. Whatever He has for me, whatever He wants for me, that's what I want. And I used to tell my church congregation to imagine a wave, a large wave breaking, curling in toward the shore. And I said, I don't want to be at the backside of the wave. I want to be out here on the frayed edge, the leading edge of the wave, wherever He's moving, however He's moving. I want to be on the very cutting edge of it. I want to be out front. And that's just my nature. I want to be out on the front. Yeah. I had no idea what I was praying about. So when an awareness of this walk came to me, it didn't take long and I jumped. It cost me a lot of what I had known to be foundationally secure for me.
It costs you more than most people know. I understand. I know the price you paid.
We took a huge risk, but it turned out it wasn't a risk because the security of Yah's hand was involved in the whole thing. He knew how I would respond. He knew what to provoke me into and how to push, and He got me across the sea. That all being said, Mike, somebody influenced me. Mike Clayton influenced me. How do we influence those that are on the other side of the sea from us?
Okay.
Is it our job to influence them? I'm going to raise up someone else on their side to influence them? Can we call to them from across the sea? If we don't build a bridge back, I guess in our minds we think we went through the struggle of getting it across. Maybe we can if we make it easier, if we build a ferry, if we build a bridge, if we somehow make the path a larger, broader path to get them across, we can have more success. It's kind of like what we do for our upcoming generations. We try to spare them the difficulties that we encountered in life, thinking that we're making life better for them. And in looking back, I don't know that we make it any better at all. They need the trial, they need the pressure in order to become what those trials and pressures made us.
Okay, you're bringing up an interesting word here that I've used. We've talked about this, the word "we." Okay, but I want to go different context of the word "we." If we can build a bridge, if we can build a ferry, if we can do this, if we can do something to help people get from that side to this side, all right. There's one thing I know that I've seen in Barry Phillips through the 20-something years that we've been walking this out together. You've never had a desire to go back.
Yeah.
You've never looked at me and said, this is not working out. I think I'm just going to go back to where I was. And the reason is that because you didn't get here via a bridge.
No.
You got here via a miraculous event. So and there is a great movement within Messianic circles today to go back, as there was in the wilderness with Moshe. Let's go back to Egypt. Okay, now let's bring this to today. Is it the reason that people are able to kind of go back is because they got here via a man-made bridge instead of a Yah-inspired miraculous event?
I don't know why you are able to do this kind of thing and throw these thoughts out, and it still take me by surprise. After all these years, I should have anticipated.
Listen, this is not this is something that just, this is why, and people don't understand, Barry, another little, rabbit trails aren't kosher, so bovine, people don't understand that the reason we do a program is because of when you and I first met, I would go up to Gloucester, sit in your house, and we would start talking, and it was as if the Ruach just kind of came into the room and said, "Excuse me, guys, I'd like to be a part of this conversation." And when we started to do a program together many years ago, we wondered if that same revelation would come forth into this. So, people, you probably think, these guys planned this. No, I had no thought of that prior to this program. So if you argue someone into Shabbat, if you argue someone into the feasts and festivals, if you, through opening the scripture without divine intervention and revelation, but you, tit for tat kind of thing along the way, and they go, well, I guess you're right. You've built a man-made bridge for them to get to where you are instead of a spiritual revelation. So we should be standing, and again, I started this concept a little bit yesterday when I was recording, but it's kind of unpacking right now for me. We need to be standing there on the side of the sea that we've gotten to because of a spiritual revelation and encounter, and be, kind of like, hey guys, over here, and be exemplifying this life on this side to the point that they say, listen, sea split or not, I'm getting out there, and they start wading out into the water until the miracle happens. But no matter what, they're going to get across. It's not about me going back and getting them, because they've got to have their own battle getting across. They've got to have their own miracle, because that miracle will cement which side of the sea that they desire to live on.
Let me see if I can find this quickly. Now you got my mind running here. 2 Corinthians 11. Rav Shaul talking about his narrow road experience. I am more in labors, much more in stripes above measure, in prisons more frequently, in deaths many times. 5 times I received from the Yehudim 40 stripes less one. So he had the scars of almost 200 whip marks on his back. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. A day and a night I have been in the deep, in many travels, dangers of waters, dangers of robbers, dangers from my own race, and dangers from the nations, dangers of the city, and dangers in the desert, and dangers in the sea, and dangers among false brothers. I always stumble at that one, at false brothers. Toil, hardship, watchings often, hunger, thirst, fastings often, and cold and nakedness. And besides all that, the anxiety daily for the assemblies. That's the narrow path. Now, does everyone on the narrow path experience all of that torture and physical abuse? No. While I have not been beaten and bruised in my body for my belief, I have been pushed, shoved, beaten down, tried severely, etc. in my spirit. I know what false brothers are. I know what isolation is. My family and I have experienced rejection and hardship and the starve him out campaign. We've been through all of that, but I know who's faithful. And a congregation, a church many years ago that refused to bring their tithe and offerings to the church. They held it at home until we were so broke and out of money that we would have to move because we couldn't afford to eat. In that same situation, people outside the church would meet me at my fence and hand me handfuls of money. And people were sending cards and saying, the Father woke me up and said to send you this card with this amount and on this check to you. These are people I hadn't talked to in years. They were calling my parents and saying, what's wrong with Barry? I don't know where he's at. I don't know what he's doing, but the Father's got me praying and interceding for him. And I want to send him some money. Where is he at? How do I get it to him? Mike, we walked out of that place when the Father opened a different door to come to Gloucester. You talking about Pharaoh pushing us across the sea. All my bills were paid, my truck, my transfer truck and so forth, everything was rented to make the move. And when I got to Gloucester, I had over $1,500 in cash in my pocket. I wasn't broke. I was blessed.
Mm-hmm.
I was favored. That's the miraculous. It's the narrow path. But lest anybody despair if we say that if you got life easy, you're on the wrong path. Not saying that. But the narrow path or the straight path, the way of affliction that leads to the gate that gets you into the kingdom is one where you're going to be tested and proved and tried.
Yeah. And
you're going to find Yah faithful every step of the way, doing what you can't do, opening doors that are shut in your face, providing what you can't afford. I want to say that he has, I can't tell you the number of times he has provided for me what I could not afford. Over and again. He has raised us up. Hey, look, if you get into ministry or if you get into a walk in the Spirit, thinking that you're going to have prosperity and blessing, and that means a big bank account, you're in the wrong path. It's not that money is evil. It's not. There's blessings, there's favor, and there's, with good management, you can have increase and you can be a blessing to others. But this idea that I'm just going to quote a verse and pray a prayer and sit back and count the money, it don't work that way. So it's not, you can't prove the path you're on by how much money you have or what possessions you have or how many people are in your building or how popular your work is. There, as you said, there is an effort to build a bridge back and make the way easier, and to go back and to re-identify and to reprogram and repackage everything to where it's nice, neat, and desirable. I remember David Wilkerson many years ago, Mike, describing himself preaching in a particular location. I think it was in New York. And I saw the video. He had come down to the place where he was inviting people to come to the altar, and he was challenging them. If you're not willing to endure, if you're not willing to pay the price to follow after the Messiah, do not come to this altar. Stay in your seat if you're not willing to pay a price to be his. If you're not willing to be tested and tried and proven, if you're not willing to endure, stay in your seat. And the harder he made it, the more they jumped from their seats and ran to the front.
Yeah, David was he was an amazing man. So, Barry, what we're talking about is if we make an easy road, then we rob people of the opportunity for the miraculous, which is to rob them of a testimony of the road, which is to rob the Almighty of the ability for his name to be made great. If we build a bridge, the tendency would be for us to put our name on it. There's no way to put your name on a parting of the Reed Sea, because you have to stand on the bank and say, there's no way I could have done that. So it becomes, if we build a bridge, we have the opportunity to share or desire to share the glory of the people that made it across, instead of stand with them in awe, knowing that the only thing that we had to do with this is to just wave our hands in the air and got their attention.
I thought about this a minute ago, and man, we're running way over on time here, I think. But Yeshua admonished us to be light, to thrust the light of him in us into the darkness, to be salt in the earth, to not be hidden. A city on the hill cannot be hidden. Of course, he was referencing Jerusalem there. It is the way we walk our path that will invite other people to walk with us. If I'm on a path where I only have giggles and laughs, somebody desiring a giggle and a laugh will walk with me for a while, but it will also prove to be shallow and without any fruit. There is joy. There is an abundance of joy. I'm not a depressed person. I'm a happy and joyful person. See my smile? But when I encounter or we encounter issues and we are brought through and we overcome, and the light shines and the salt is giving flavor and the revelation is not being hidden, ultimately that's what people want, and they will join with you. No, it's not a popularity contest. It can't be. We're not following people. We're following Messiah. Messiah is on this path with us, leading us, directing us to the narrow gate. But if we will walk this path, this narrow path, with joy and overcoming and maturing and fruit bearing, those that have any desire for those things will join with us. Those that are only looking for the path of least resistance will never join us.
Good. Well, maybe we'll come back to this next week and unless something else happens, we'll come back to this next week, and discuss how do we know what's the evidence that we're on the right path.
Okay.
See where that one goes. All
So
right.
we do appreciate everyone watching Foundations for Life. And we last week some have left comments. Thank you so much for doing so. We invite your comments, your questions, and pray for us that the Father will use us effectively. We don't want just a boring program that gets nowhere. So
There you go.
We appreciate it. We'll see you again next week. See you next week, Mike. Shalom.
All right. Stay warm.